of the Son, of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Let us thank God for all the graces we received during the Easter season, the Easter feast, celebration, Triduum, Pascha Triduum. Let us pray for peace, for justice, especially for our brothers who are persecuted. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and the hour of our death. Amen. Mary, seat of wisdom,
Pray for us.
in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
So this morning we work on the divine cooperation and the human freedom, and also a few short reflection on the problem of evil. So when we left last class, we were studying about the causality of God, and God causing every being, every mode of being. At the same time, the secondary causes, men, especially men, but also, but we speak about men because we are first concerned, but it is true also for every kind of activity by creation. How can we conciliate, how we can explain the omnipotence of God sustaining everything in being, and also in mode of being. You don't forget, mode of being include activity. You remember the 9 categories, quantity, quality, relation, action, passion, etc. All those are mode of being, and they must sustain by God. So that means all activity of creature must be sustained by God. So what is the relation between all of them? And if you go to page 10, there is here the objection of those who say that in fact there is only one cause, true cause is God, and the creation is only the occasion for God to act. We call that occasionalism, and the one who proposed that is a priest, oratorian, Father Malebranche, a disciple of Descartes, and he was a mathematician also. Malebranche in French means branch, branch of the tree, bad branch, Malebranche. So, in fact, no, we cannot accept that that the second cause are deprived from all causality. And let us go to the answer of that, 24.1.1. The necessity of recognizing the activity of the first cause in all causation does not mean that the second causes, or secondary causes, are thereby to be taught as deprived of all causality. The causality of God is participated by the causality of the finite being. The example, when you were a little girl, I speak about the sister, of course, not the boy, and you help your mother to prepare, to cook a pie, or cookies or something. So you're participating. In fact, your mother was the first responsible, but you have the impression you did something. In fact, you did something. Or when you wrote for primary school, the teacher hold your hand, helped you to make letters. It was you who were writing, but sustained by the hand of your teacher. Okay? So, we use analogy to understand that. I continue. True causality of second causes, according to St. Thomas. And I go to the third paragraph, the last paragraph of the page. To take order away from creature is to deny them the best thing they have. Because that's important, each creature is good in itself. We saw that by the fact we exist, we are good. While altogether they are very good in account of the order of the universe. Well, I give you an example of an orchestra or a band. When I was a young teacher, I started a band in the high school when I was teaching. And we start from scratch. So every student has to learn clarinet, trumpet, oboe, you know, French horn. And one by one, they try to. So every student, they were able to become good in the playing of their instrument, you know. But they are better when they are together, no? Can I play a symphony alone? I cannot. I can play well. Huh? My playing is, but I cannot. It is better when we are together and we have a symphony, beautiful music, a choir. Can you sing in polyphony when you are alone? Huh? And, no, you are maybe a good singer, but when you are many together, you can sing in 4 parts. And that is melodious, harmony, you know. So I continue here. Huh? So while altogether, they are very good on account of the order of the universe. So that means we are good together to accomplish the good of the universe. Because the whole is always better than the part, and it is their end. In fact, when you play, you study trumpet, you study clarinet, it is not only to play alone, it is to play with an orchestra, with a band, with a group, you know. So in fact, your activity is not only for yourself. Your activity is for the common good of the orchestra to produce beautiful music, etc. It's the same for sport. You can play with along with the ball, no? You can play hours with the ball. But in fact, if you are a good player with the ball, it is to play in a team, no? Okay. And when you practice alone, it is for the good of the team, the whole, no? Even here, we are here. You don't study only for yourself, you study for your community, for your diocese, for the church, etc. Okay. I continue. Now, if we subtract action from thing, the order among things is withdrawn, because things differing in nature are not bound together in the unity of order, except through the fact that some are active and some are passive. That means in the organization of the universe, in the organization of the society, some are active and some are passive. What is the meaning of that? That means that we have beings that are they are the mode of action, and all other are the mode of passion. For example, the carpenter who did this desk was in action, but the desk, that is a being, was in passion. It was passive. The desk was passive. It was made by, is an effect. So the carpenter is the cause, and the desk here is the effect. It is St. Thomas says some are active and some beings are passive. At the point of view, you can be active and passive. For example, in regard of my father and mother, I am passive. I receive. But in regard of what I am doing now, studying, playing the music or preparing for a meal, etc., I am active. Therefore, it is unreasonable to say that things have not their proper action. So the activity of the secondary causes are part of the universe. In an orchestra, in a band, every instrument is important. Even the little triangle, even the little bell, even the drum. Every instrument is important. Action and passion are two modes of being in the substance of finite beings. So some beings are active, they are causes, and some beings, they are passive, they are the effects, you know. But all that is in the harmony of the whole universe. So, you know, when we speak about good, we said the good is in itself, a being is good, ontologically good. But a being is good also with the whole, with the universe. So when we speak about the causality of God, we should think about that. God causes each one individually, personally, but at the same time, He is also ordering the whole universe. Like in orchestra, the conductor is conducting the whole, but everyone must follow the conductor, no? Otherwise, it's no more music. I continue, page 11. So, secondary cause, or second cause, are true cause, exercise a true causality. Contrary to Father Malebranche. Father Malebranche say, not only God is cause, all the rest is occasion of, for God to cause. No. Second beings and secondary beings are truly cause. They exercise a real causality. You have two levels of causality. You have the moral level and the physical level. But the moral level, if we saw that recently, if you, for example, you are a superior of community and you give to your bursar the power to buy a car. Okay, you sign a paper, you say, okay, you buy a car. You delegate, and that is a moral power, a moral efficiency. So your bursar, when he buys the car in the name of the community, the congregation, it is a moral efficient, moral cause. Moral cause. So when you give the power, for example, when I celebrate marriage, I must have the power of jurisdiction. Well, I can celebrate marriage in Canada. I told you my number is 12234. That's my license. But if I go to Ontario, if I go to Connecticut here in a parish, I cannot celebrate marriage. If I celebrate marriage, my marriage is invalid. And not only that, I can be sued and put into jail because I abuse. So that is delegate, moral efficiency, moral causality. Now, physical efficiency, physical causality. It ought not to be possible to understand that as a fact, second causes can possess true causality in derived and dependent fashion. Derived, that means it's not directly from them, it is from another. And because of that, dependent. Okay? So in spite of the mystery that will always remain, I told you, accept the limit of philosophy, accept the limit of reason. We are able to attain some certitude. For example, we show that not only the first cause is acting, God, but also the second cause are acting. And when my cat is running after a mouse, my cat has a power to hunt a mouse. But that power is not finally coming only from him, because he cannot exist without being sustained in God by for existence, to exist, and also to be active, to be active. Okay? So I continue. In regard of the manner of the working of the first cause in and with the second, we know that God works, cooperates with man or with creation. For example, God can create cats without using male and female cats. He can't do that. He has the power. If we can think a word, every generation will be created by God, directly. With all knowledge, all ideas in that computer. It is not impossible. Descartes thought about that. Even St. Augustine. God put in our mind the ideas. It is a possibility, but it is not the way in reality. So look, we don't know the how. We know that God gave that the power to cooperate with Him. We are sure of that, but we cannot know how. If we know how, you know God perfectly. Because only God can explain to us how He can do that. And in His wisdom, He does not need, He thinks it's not necessary to explain that. So there is a part of trust, even in philosophy. I don't speak about faith, or a human faith, you know. We have to hold both, except we don't know how it is. For a simple example, you know how you know when you eat that the food you eat become yourself. You know that, okay? Do you know how? No, but you know. You know that when you eat a banana, you will have potassium, again, cramps. When you eat another salad, you will have iron, you have metal you need in your bone, calcium when you drink milk. How? We don't know. Maybe some learned scientists, they try to know. But we know milk, and we know the effect of milk, but how? We don't know. So even in our life, we cannot explain everything. For theory, when we speak about God, we cannot explain everything. We cannot explain what is a lack of freedom. We cannot explain that. But we know there is a lack of freedom. There is a lack of love. But what? We don't know. Even our own life. Think about your own life. You act, you put some action in your life, some decision. Can you explain totally the decision you took? Can you explain perfectly the decision that make you a sister and not a mother of children? Can you explain that you become a priest and not become a notary or a physician? You have some motivation, you cannot explain that. Love, freedom is a part of mystery. So we must accept there is a part of mystery. Second objection, the activity of the Son of God will be superfluous. No, if God is omnipotent, we have nothing to do. No? That is the objection. That is the answer. But the activity of the second cause is not superfluous. If the order of the universe results from the activity of these causes, in fact, God wants that the harmony of the universe depend on every creature. Because the order of the universe is not superfluous, but rather necessary for attainment to the end of the universe. So God has a plan for the whole universe, and every creature enters in that plan, and in the action of every creature is not superfluous. It is a part of the plan. Every being existing is a part of the whole plan of the universe. But how? We try to find that through science, through chemistry, to physics, to biology. We try to understand. But the proof there is a plan. The proof of that, we have physics, we have chemistry, we have biology, I have astronomy. All those sciences try to understand the plan of the universe. And we call that the law of science. In fact, the law of science are only the discovery of the order of the universe. That means everything, even a mosquito has its reason of existing in the universe. Maybe it will make you more holy, practicing more patience. The thing, don't forget, principle of sufficient reason. As soon as there is being, there is a reason for the existence of that being. There is a finality. And that finality must be understood in the whole universe. We cannot understand one by one everything. For example, the time we have a mechanic watch, today we have an electronic watch. In the time we have a mechanic watch, it was necessary to understand all the mechanism of the watch to use the watch. Now, what you knew, if you open, and many times as kids, we open the watch, and we see all those little wheels, clocks, everyone has its reason. We don't know exactly, but we know that all that is for the good functioning of the watch. So that is an explanation, if you want to understand that every creature has a role in the universe. Every electron, every proton, every cell, every germ. Well, but we cannot explain, but we try to understand. And God gave us an intellect to try to understand. He gave us an appetite to understand. Curiosity, intellectual. All the time we ask questions. All the time. So to discover more and more the order in the universe, because when we discover the order in the universe, we discover the glory of God. We discover His love. We discover, in fact, to study science is to glorify God. To study biology is to glorify God. Because when you study biology, you see the order put in your body, and you go to the one who did that, and you glorify God. You know, to study physics is a prayer. It can be a prayer. I am discovering the secret, the plan of the universe, that plan made by God in the universe. And little by little, a scientist is discovering. And we know that we are very far from discovering everything. Continue. Because the second causality is owed to the immensity of God's goodness and the love of God made His creature cooperate to His creation. And it is the teaching of St. Thomas. A beautiful text here. I will read and comment. Not is it superfluous if God can produce all natural effects by Himself, that He should be produced as certain other causes, because it is not owing to insufficiency of His power, but to the immensity of His goodness. Why God makes creature sharing in His causality? It is because of His love for creature. Think about your mother when you were 7 years old, and you were bothering your mother. Mother, I want to cook with you. And your mother say, oh my little daughter, okay, do that, and with patience, you know. It was an act of love for your mother to help you to cook, to teach you to cook. You know. God shares His causality because He loves His creation. He loves cats. He loves trees. And he made them participating in creation. God would be able to create trees every year. Every spring, a new kind of trees, you know. New kind of flowers, no. God wants that flowers produce flowers, trees produce trees, cat produce cats. And there are laws, and there are time for that, and we can measure, etc. It is a plan, and that plan of God proves He is intelligent. That plan of God proves He is loving. He is love. And He makes creature participating, especially one man, with his freedom. Okay, continue. Not only in the point of their being, but also being causes of other things. For it is in these two ways that all things have the divine likeness. All things, St. Thomas says, all things have the divine likeness bestowed upon them. What is divine likeness? Causality. Every creature is sharing in the causality of God. Every creature has an end, and that end is a part of the whole orchestra, the whole universe. So when you look at that positively, you see that the causality we share with God, God shared with us, is not diminishing us. On the contrary, He makes us like Him, to His resemblance. Even think, but men more than, because man is able to understand. And in the square, finite being share in the causative power of God, but by being causes of the becoming of their other being. Of course, we don't create being, we don't cause in the creation as create from nothing, but we share in the causality of God by the cause of the becoming of something. When you cook a bread, you cook a pie, then you are working, you are cooperating with God in the becoming of some pie, something good, etc. The causative power of God is one with His wisdom and goodness. Don't forget, bonum diffusivum sui. The love of God is giving. Love is not only to receive, essentially, love is to give. The pure love it is a blessed love, without receiving nothing. So it is a proof of the wisdom and love of God to make finite being cooperate to his creation. Wisdom and love. And when you sing on Sunday morning the Canticle of Creature, think about that. All those creatures you sing are the fruit of the wisdom and the love of God. And because of that we praise. We say, snow of the Lord, praise the Lord. Even we have to shovel after. By analogy, it is a proof of love and a sign of wisdom, a wise pedagogy of parents to make their children cooperate with them in the family life, etc. So that, in fact, it is, God applied the principle of subsidiarity. You remember? We saw that in sociality. Subsidiarity. God does not want to take the place of the cat to control mice. So God does not want to take the place of the snake when the snake is destroying rats. You know, God is practicing the principle of subsidiarity. A higher authority must not take the place of a lower authority, a lower power. You know. So it's important in education. For example, if you teach, if you are in high school, anywhere, try to give to the children some responsibilities. Okay. Now I go to the third part of the chapter. It is the divine cooperation and human freedom. Well, it is not too difficult to accept that my cat is sustained by God when he runs after a mouse. That is not too difficult. Because my cat is not free. But when it is man, that is more difficult. Because man is free. How we can conciliate the infinite power of God, sustaining not only in the creation of the thing, but sustaining the thing in its activity. Not only God gave us an essence, a nature, but this nature is the essence as principle of activity. But it sustains us our activities. And one of our most important activities is to decide, to take decision, to act, free act. How? That is the problem. So let us try to understand a little bit, but don't ask more than we can obtain. That stays a mystery. So, but it's not because it is a mystery that we have no effort to do to understand. For me, a mystery is something we never finish to try to understand. And we never finish to understand, but we have to try to understand. I give an example in theology, the mystery of the Holy Trinity. If you say it's a mystery, therefore I believe it's finished, no more. Stop there. No theology is finished. What do you say in theology? What do you try to? You try to understand, to have a certain rational knowledge of what is the Trinity. But at the same time, we know that is a mystery. You will never understand completely, but you have to make an effort. It's the same here. We have to make an effort to understand how the power of God, the knowledge of God, is compatible with the freedom of man. Okay? So the difficulty in the explanation of the dependence of the second cause on the first cause. And because of that, there is immediately someone would say, you know, if God is omnipotent, omniscience, he cooperates with your free act, where is your freedom? That is the objection. Okay? So the formulation, the problem, 3.1.1. If the will in its free activity must have the cooperation of the first cause, and cannot act without this cooperation, so we saw that. Not only God gave us our being, but he sustains us in our activities. Okay? Then the question will arise, how can the will determine itself to act if I am sustained by God in my own act of willing? Okay? So we have two parts. First, A. Because in some sense of the word, freedom must mean self-determination. We saw that before. we saw that essentially freedom is to be able to determine the object of my willing. We call that self-determination or self-mastery. Huh? Okay? Can a thing which is determined by another to act, to be said to be free? That is the problem. And secondly, how can any finite cause determine itself? Since this will seem to imply an independence of the first cause. You see the argument here. Huh? We saw that everything depends on God to exist and to act. Huh? We saw that. So how can you say that man is self-determining? Is that contradicting the first affirmation? That is the problem, is it? So let us try to find some light on that. Huh? I don't say complete explanation, but St. Thomas tried to do something to give an explanation. What is the explanation of St. Thomas? For him, it was not he did not insist a lot on that. Huh? In fact, in the Middle Age, that problem of freedom was not too acute. It became acute, especially with Descartes, okay? Because the autonomy of reason, etc. At any rate, Aquinas does not go into detail of explanation, but he consents himself with proving that the divine activity in the universe does not exclude free will in intelligent creature. So he is happy with that. He says, okay, God do everything, and also he helps man to be free. And St. Thomas, in fact, uses the analysis of the act of the will, and the intellect presents many means, and the will has the possibility of choice. So for St. Thomas, is a fact, we are free, and we have the responsibility of our action. We have self-determining. Okay? But at the same time, he accepts that God is sustaining everything. The problem is still the same. Well, how? The problem is the how. How we can consider that. St. Thomas affirmed God sustains everything, even my free act. And on the other side, I am sure that I am free and responsible. The how, the connection here. You look at that, it's not something only for philosophy. You have a computer. You know to use your computer, but do you know how it functions? No. But you trust. Huh? You trust your computer, you trust those who made the computer, but you don't understand everything. The computer will stay for the majority of the users mystery. Except some very special people. Huh? But yes, we use without understanding. We trust, you know. Okay? I go back to the text here. St. Thomas, the text says, it belongs to the divine providence to use things according to their mode of being. Don't forget, quantity, quality, action, and passion. Action. Huh? Okay? And the mode of a thing action, the action of a thing, is in keeping with its form, which is the principle of action. In fact, I act according to my form. What is the form of man? It is the soul, human soul. Everything. My cat acts according to his form as a cat, you know. So that is a principle. We act according to our form. In fact, to our nature. But it is the form of man is to be rational, animal, rational. Now, the form through which a voluntary agent acts is not determinate. That form is not determinate because the will acts through a form apprehended by the intellect. So we know the will is receive the form known, apprehended by the intellect. Think about the analysis of the human life by St. Thomas. Every step of the will is preceded by a step, an action of the intellect. Okay. Because the will acts through a form apprehended. Okay. That means the form of good. I will a thing because I have the form of good. I like ice cream because I have the form of the good ice cream in my mind. Because of that, I am going to Dairy Queen. Huh? Since the apprehended good moves the will objectively, objectively, that means I cannot will nothing. I will always an object. And that object is known through my intellect. And my intellect knows many objects, many good. And the multitude of forms, because I know many goods, finite goods, so that the will is able to produce manifold effects. That means I can have many acts of the will. Why? Because there are many objects, many forms. For example, you go to a store to buy clothes, but you have a lot, many kind of clothes. So you have, because you have many kinds of clothes, you can make a choice. You can take a decision. If there is only one, but you take what is there. Okay. But of such a nature as to understand a multitude of forms, so that the will is able to produce manifold effects. That means we can choose many. For example, there are Mazda, you have a Toyota, you have Honda, etc. You can choose many cars. Because many forms of car are in your mind. Therefore, it does not belong to divine providence to exclude freedom of the will. Who gave you that power to know all those different good? It is through your intellect. Your intellect is moved by God. That means you cannot think without something. So that means when you take a decision, it is your decision, but at the same time you are moved by God. So that means if I am moved in my act of willing, I continue to be free. In fact, St. Thomas will say, we are determined to be free. I am created in such a way that I have to be free. I continue. Look at page 13. So, the acute stage of the difficulty was reached in later discussion on the subject of grace, about the problem of grace and freedom. When you be in theology, it will be one of the most difficult things, the problem of grace and the problem of predestination. Okay? Now, in this controversy, there is an agreement and a disagreement. In the agreement between St. Thomas, for example, Dominican, and the Jesuit, Molina, Suarez, and Saint Robert Bellarmine. It's interesting to see you have doctors of the church on both sides. No, it's not a dogma of faith, that explanation. Okay? Otherwise, we will be obliged either to believe what St. Thomas teaches or what Saint Robert Bellarmine teaches, and Molina. So I go to the text. Agreement. Both sides were agreed in admitting the existence of freedom in finite intelligence. Okay? Every man is free. And in admitting also, too, this freedom was compatible with the supremacy of God as the first cause. So both accept that, St. Thomas and Molina. Okay? The disagreement is in the how, in the manner. How we can explain that. That is the. Okay? The manner in which God's cooperation with free action must be represented. Whether as predetermining, that is the position of St. Thomas, predetermining. God is predetermining me to do a free action. I am predetermined to do a free action. Or not predetermining, that is the position of Molina and Saint Robert Bellarmine. So now the theories. So what is common to the theories of St. Thomas and Robert? This theory offers an explanation of this difficulty are the same as were mentioned in connection with the question of the infallibility of God for knowledge of free action. You remember when you study, God knows, He knows now what will happen in the future for us. He knows exactly the day you will be canonized. I will not be there. We saw that, okay? I don't want to come back on that. The question is linked into the infallibility of the foreknowledge of God. God, omniscience of God. God knows everything now. Now. The future for us is the present for God. Whew. So if it is there, the problem is very, very serious. If God knows exactly what I will do in 30 years, in 10 years, if I am saved, if I am with Him in heaven or in hell with another one, where is my freedom? Is the problem we call in theology a problem of predestination. And for the Protestant, it was a very, very big problem. And they divided on that problem. Okay? The Calvinists, for example, Lutheran, have many different interpretations. So I continue. The accord is the foreknowledge and the cooperation are inseparable connected. The foreknowledge, God knows, and the cooperation, that means God works with man and man with God, that is, they are connected. We cannot separate that. In fact, in God, the knowledge of God and the power of God are one. Don't forget the infinite simplicity of God. The problem is, when we study theology or natural theology, we are in time and space. God is not in time and space, He is eternal. So we have to speak about eternity using the concept of time and space. That is excessively difficult. I think that the problem is here. We speak about something we don't know. And we don't know what is eternal. We are not in eternity. And we want to explain how God is cooperating with us, with respecting our freedom. But to study that, we have to use concepts that are in time and space. So we must be aware of that. And many times the people, the Catholic, Protestant, when they speak about that, they think only, most of the time, in time and space. We should try to understand a little bit what is eternity. And so we use our human concept to study a reality that is totally different. So we must accept we cannot know everything. But it's not the reason. Let us continue. St. Thomas. St. Thomas, okay, what he said, the second cause, for example, man, in order to act, require what they call a physical predetermination. Not a moral predetermination. Your father did that, your mother did that. They try to convince you to be a good boy, a good girl, and not to do everywhere, to drink everything, etc. Okay? Therefore, God, in cooperation with second causes, give his cooperation in the shape of physical predetermination, not only moral determination. Well, for example, the 10 Commandments are moral predetermination. God gave you 10 laws to guide you, but it's moral. But the action of God is not only moral, it is physical. That means it is in your nature. God sustains you in your nature. What is that nature? Don't forget nature. Essence as principle of activities. That means God not only sustains you as you are, He has also what you do, your action. Because your action as a part of you are linked with your nature. A cat has not the same activity as a dog, and men are not the same activity as animal and flower. So I continue. Without the physical predetermination given by God, the second cause is unable to act at all. So we are sure of that, and we can do nothing without be sustained in our being, in our activities, not only being, our activities. If God sustains 1 second, I will disappear completely. I am continually taken out of nothing. You know, the way I became to exist is the way I continue to exist. If I am born, I have exist as a man, I will continue to exist as a man. If I am born as a cat, I will continue to exist as a cat. So if I am depending totally on God to begin to exist, I continue to be totally dependent on Him to continue and to act. That is a thing we must absolutely hold that. Okay? With St. Thomas. With the physical predetermination given by the second cause can act only in the way, in the manner, the cooperation predeterminates it to act. In the case of man, his way is freedom. In fact, God predetermines, they predeterminate man to act freely. That is the position of St. Thomas. So we are predetermined to be free. Are you at ease with that?
No.
No. Predetermined excludes freedom. Apparently, it is a contradiction.
Yeah.
I am predetermined to be free. And we try to find a solution to that. I continue. God decreeing the predetermination which He intends to give to any second cause. That means when God creates a thing, He predetermines the thing to an end, to such action, activity, will know beforehand, foreknowledge, the nature, what is nature? Essence as principle of activity, of the action which the second cause will perform. And since the nature of the action is predetermined in cooperation with the second cause. So St. Thomas says, we are predetermined to cooperate freely with God. It is his explanation. I am created in such a way that in my nature as a human being, having a free will, I am predetermined to use my free will in cooperation with God. That means I cannot do any kind of act of freedom, act of the will, without being sustained by God. So when I decide something, you become a sister or become a priest because you get married. When you say I do, you are sustaining your I do. Where is my freedom? Continue. So the explanation will be found satisfactory to explain that is satisfying for the being who act necessarily, the need for being who are not free. I can understand that for my cat. My cat, when he is running after a mouse, he is determined to run after a mouse. But when a man is running after ice cream, or after Coca-Cola, or after vodka, is he free? St. Thomas said, yes, he is free because God predetermined man to be free in this action. So I am predetermined. Is there you understand why the Jesuits, Modena, Saint Bernardin, Suarez, they were not satisfied with that. They tried to find another explanation. So the central difficulty arises when we attempt to apply it to the explanation of the free action. Because the free cause cannot act only unless it is determined to act by the divine cooperation. We know that. I can do no act of freedom without being sustained. I must accept that. It's not something, I'm not free in regard of that, If I understand very well the power of God, the infinite power of God, the foreknowledge of God, foreknowledge, I must affirm that. I must affirm that I can do nothing if I am not determined by the divine cooperation. And once free cause is determined by cooperation in the shape of a physical predetermination, that is the teaching of St. Thomas, it will seem that the free cause cannot act otherwise. It seems I am free at first sight. in the action of the created cause. So here there is an apparent contradiction. I am predetermined to act freely. My action of freedom is determined. It's predetermined. And the question is very serious. Think about Mary when she said fiat. Was she free or not? Of course, we say she was free, otherwise like a human act. But don't we say she was predetermined for all eternity to say yes, fiat. And that question is excessively serious, no? Excessively serious. I continue. Hence, it is hard to see how there is a room left for freedom. So now the Montanist, the Jesuit, propose another theory. A part is the same, but a difference somewhere. So the explanation, the cooperation given by God to the first cause is not conceived as predetermining. Here, they differ from St. Thomas. They say no. The causality of God is not predetermining. The cooperation given by God is not preceding the act and determining the character, but that is important here to understand Molina. The cooperation given by God to the free act accompanies the act and produces the effect along with the action of the second cause. Accompanies, not precede, accompanies. So when you say that, you suppress predetermination, you know. So therefore, the next line excessively important because the essential of Molina here. The cooperation given by God to the free cause is called simultaneous. Simultaneous, accompany at the same time, and different cooperation. And different. That means God, when He sustains you, accompany you, His accompaniment, His sustaining, is indifferent. That means God does not indicate we have to do. Now you go to Dairy Queen, you have to choose between chocolate or vanilla or strawberry, you know. God is accompanying you, ice cream. Dairy Queen is with you. He's sustaining your will. But He is indifferent. He will not say, take orange, take strawberry, take vanilla. No, that is, you know, it is indifferent. But He gives you the power to break that indifference. You know, the difference between St. Thomas and Molina is here. Of course, personally, I prefer that second explanation, but it's not satisfying. But it is an effort to understand better that God is not suppressing our freedom, but God is accompanying our freedom. An example of that is electricity. The electricity accompanies you in your activities, but the electricity is not determining your activities. You can use electricity to cook. You can use electricity to enlighten the apartment. You can use electricity to make hole with etc. You can use electricity for the chair, electric chair. Yes, many. So God, of course, is an analogy. An analogy is very imperfect, but it is a little bit to help. Electricity accompany all the activities of my machines and my devices. The electricity is sustaining them in their, but the electricity does not determine them. God does not determine. He is indifferent. He gives me a room to take a decision. In that decision, I take it with His help. But it is my decision and not the decision of God. You see the difference. It's very big difference. Okay? Well, the Jesuits and Dominican, they fought a long time, and I think they continue to fight about that. So, simultaneous, go to the text. Simultaneous indicates that there is no activity of any second cause without the creative activity of God. In fact, simultaneous save cooperation. God and man, they work together. When I take a free decision, I am with God. I am sustained by God. But God does not give me, he accompany me in a certain indifference. Otherwise, I will not be free at all. So he sustained me in my free decision. And in such a way that my decision is not his decision, my decision is my decision. I am responsible for what I am doing. Otherwise, I am not free at all. Predetermination is very serious. Here I prefer simultaneous and indifferent cooperation. Okay? So the synthesis after that. The purpose of the Bodhina opinion is to offer a way in which we can understand God, to cooperate with the second cause, that is, in keeping with the nature of these causes, especially the cause of man and freedom, free will. Therefore, next page, if God cooperation with second cause according to their nature, then if God cooperates according to the nature, a cat is accompanied by God in his activity because the nature of a cat is given by God and God sustains my cat in his activity. It's the same for man. My nature comes from God, a rational animal. In my activity of free act, I am sustained by him. So simultaneous but indifferent. Otherwise there is no more freedom. We are robots and we have no more morality, no more ethics, nothing. We are robots. You remember the problem for the pagan when you study with Mr. Ch13. Fate. Even Jupiter had to obey to fate. The problem for them, there is no freedom. In fact, the gods were not free. They were not free. Even the god of the god, the superior, was obeying his wife. It's interesting to see. It's a big problem. And the consequence of that, if I am totally run by fate, I am not responsible for what I'm doing. I can kill, I can do anything. I'm not responsible. I say God is responsible. And people are a temptation to do that. When something bad happens, we say, God, why did you do that? Okay. Continue. So to do so, excuse me, yes. Just again, God must cooperate with free causes in a way that leave the first cause still free. The problem is not only on the side of man, the problem is the side of God. God must be free. That means God must not depend on my decision. And God must give me some room, some freedom to take a decision. In fact, it is on both sides. God cannot, we say sometimes God depends on me. God does not depend on us. We depend totally on him, not he on us. Okay? I continue. So to do so, God's cooperation must enable the cause to act without predetermining the character of its action. God's cooperation must provide the free cause be able to act one way or another. So the theory is in accord with reason, but is not totally satisfying. So I go to the bottom of page 15 because time is limiting. Paragraph D and E. D. The denial of physical determination must not be taken to mean that will can act without being moved by God at first cause. So I am not physically determined by God in my final decision. If I am physically determined by God in my final decision, I'm not free. I am sustained, but God gives me the power to say yes or to say no. It's extremely powerful because I can say no to God. I can oppose God. Imagine, God gave me the power to oppose him. Monadists do not deny the will is moved, but they affirm only that in being moved, they will not be predetermined. So we have moved without being predetermined, like My devices are moved by electricity, but they are not predetermined. So the electricity, let's say, I will send electricity only to heaters, not to refrigerator. No, no. Electricity is sustaining every action, every device. So the fact a device is used because it does not depend on the electricity, it depends on the one who uses it. So who is the one who uses power of decision is man. God gave me the power to decide. And He cannot take it off from me, otherwise He will annihilate me. So that is big. I continue. So the will does not act independently of the first cause, but rather the will is act as moved by the simultaneous concurrence, move without predetermining. So it is what we saw. Simultaneous and indifferent. Two words. A word now about evil. So we already spoke about that, but we come back on that. The problem. So if there exists a moral evil in some of the human action, God cooperates. When somebody kills another without reason, God cooperates. That is the problem. Does God cooperate to evil? So the answer. Let us recall first that evil is never a positive reality. It's a privation. Secondly, moral evil is the privation of the right relation of an action to the last end of man, to the due. The action itself is a positive reality. To kill, to use a gun is a positive reality. But the moral evil is the privation of the full reality which the action should have in the right relation to the end. To my final end is the usage of the gun help me to attain my final end or not. If I kill a deer, it can help me to attain my final end because I have to eat. But if I kill by vengeance, that is not conform to my final end. So for human being, the influence of the second cause can fail, not the action of the first cause. That means God is always sustaining man in his moral action, in his action. And if there is some privation of good a privation cannot be provoked, cannot be created by God. God cannot create nothing. So if there is a privation in your action, privation of good, it is because of the second cause, because of you, because of me. No? God gave me a will to tend toward the perfect good. If, when I choose a finite good, and that finite good is not conform to my final end, it is not because of God, it is because of me. Okay? So, I continue. When the action is performed with the cooperation of the first cause, the influence of the first cause cannot and does not fail or fall short. But the influence of the second cause may fail and sometimes fails and falls short. We call that evil. We call that in theology sin. Okay? So the analogy with the teacher. We have many kinds of analogy. If you have a loudspeaker, you want to preach, but the loudspeaker does not speak well, function well. It's not because of you. If I have a good pianist and the piano is not tuned, it's not because of the pianist. So the first cause is not the responsible of the lack of perfection. The lack of perfection, the evil in my action is not depending on the first cause, it's depending on the second cause. That means man does not cooperate completely with the first cause. You know, in a choir, suppose in a choir somebody does not sing in a tune, is false. It's not because of the mass, the first cause, it's because of the individual, you know. I continue, next page. So the influence of the first cause can fail, but the God action as first cause cannot fail. So somewhat in the same way we may think that God's and man's action in a case where moral evil is found is the result. I mean, when there is a moral action cannot be done without God. But if the moral action is bad, is evil, the privation of good is not God due to the first cause, is due to the second cause. St. Thomas said, because of the first cause has the greater influence on the effect, we must attribute whatever is perfect to the influence of primarily first cause. Is the reason why we can say, with St. Paul, we can do nothing without the grace of God. We can do nothing without, Jesus said, you can do nothing without me. Okay? But whatever is defective in the effect is to be attributed to the second cause. You know when Jesus spoke with Peter, and he said, you will betray me 3 times. You know, remember that? Is Jesus the cause of the betraying of Peter? No. Jesus was giving Peter what he needed to be faithful, but Peter did not correspond to that grace. The responsibility of evil is not on the shoulder of God, it is on the shoulder of man. Yes, brother.
So, as Judas, I know that a lot of people say, like, well, he didn't have a choice, you know, he had to choose.
Judas did that freely.
Yeah.
But you know when they say the gospel in the Bible, they say it was necessary. It was necessary that happened. That means God knows that will happen. Jesus, as God, was not able, but that is theology. But to change, because he knows everything in one instant. But he knows everything in one instant. What people on earth will do successively and with their own responsibility. When I say to a student, for example, you will fail, I'm sure you will fail, because you don't study. You go to the pub, you drink, you don't study, you will fail. Am I the cause of his failure? No. I know with almost certitude he will fail, but the responsibility is not on the teacher who says that, it is on the student who doesn't work, no? But my analogy is not perfect because I cannot sustain the student in his studies. I have only a moral power. I don't have a physical power on my student. I have a moral power. Because they know they will play game with me. Okay, so I finished because I have only a few minutes, page 17. So the action, whichever is found, is a positive thing. In the measure the thing is positive as being, it is sustained by God. In the measure there is a lack of being, evil is a lack of being, that is the responsibility of the second cause. That means something out of the relation to the last one. And finally, the summary is in the middle of page 17. Everything is important here, it's the summary, everything. First, God permits action in which there is moral evil. Permits. Only the positive reality needs and gets the cooperation of God. In the measure the action is negative, is absent of good, cannot be God is only sustaining the being and the action, but in that it is positive. If I am a good hunter, that is positive. If I kill a man, that is negative. It's not because of God. Secondly, the privation of reality, which is the evil, is account for the failure of the second cause to produce a perfect effect. However, the fact that God cooperates with an action which he knows is going to be done out of the relation due to the end must be interpreted to mean that very, very important, that God permits moral evil. In fact, when God created man free, by the same, he accepts that man can commit sin. You know. But he did that because he loved us, he loved man. Okay. The unique answer of that is there. I remember my student told me a day when I began to teach philosophy, why God did not make us without able to commit a sin? Like a robot, for example. Like my cat. Yes, but you will not be human. You know, it is a challenge to be a human person. It's a challenge to be like God, with intellect and will. It is a challenge. We can use that challenge for the good, but we can use the challenge for evil also. I continue. So God permits. God does not will action in which there is morality. He does not will my bad action. He does not will my bad action. He allows that. You know your father, when he gave you the key of his car when you were 16, 17, he loves you, even if you know, maybe, instead of going to the singing practice, you will go to dancing. But you know, he loves you so much, he trusts you, he permits, he permitted that you can use not perfectly his car. But he preferred to give the power to use your freedom than to say, stay at home and be a holy virgin, a holy man. If you stay at home, you will never commit a sin. What is the best? To give the key or to stay at home with me, close to me, never commit a sin. Education is to give the key. Love is to give the key. God gave us the key. That key is our freedom. Okay? And that makes men like God. And the permission of the moral does not mean the willing. You know, when you permit your father, when he permits to use your car, he does not will you go to dancing and drink or do other things. You know, he will you do a good boy, a good girl using his car correctly. You know, but the permission of the moral evil means only the willing, the conditions that make the doing of the evil possible. Of course, when your father gives you the key, he gives you the possibility to have an accident, the possibility to kill someone, the many possibilities. And some parents are so afraid of that, what they do? They keep the key in their pocket. Never. Here. No. You will never kill a person because you use my car. No, no. He loves you. He say, oh, my dear boy, my dear girl, I give you my key. I trust you. I love you. I trust you. If you make a mistake after, is it the mistake of your father? No. Okay? So, permission. And finally, the last paragraph. This condition includes the existence of finite being endowed with freedom of choice and God's own cooperation with the positive reality of free action. So that means God is acting, cooperating with your free action, but it is still your free action because if there is some imperfection in your action, it is not because of the conductor, it is because of the player. Okay, so now it is time, it's the will of God to take a good meal. And you exercise your freedom when you go to the refectory.
Je vais take home,